Have you ever had a panic attack? Or do you know someone who struggles with panic attacks? Well, hang with me as I share my story of dealing with panic attacks and some tips on how you can overcome them and find hope again. Hi, my name is Mark. I am a pastor and professional counselor who also struggles with anxiety and panic. Welcome to my channel. Less than stressed. Now, before I share my experience with panic attacks, I'm going to give you a clinical definition of what a panic attack is. I have it written right down here. So, panic attack is a sudden episode of intense fear or discomfort that reaches a peak within minutes and includes strong physical and emotional symptoms. And besides the intense fear, some other common symptoms that you might have with a panic attack include rapid heartbeat or heart palpitations, shortness of breath or feeling smothered, dizziness or lightheadedness, right? Chest pain or discomfort, feeling of losing control or going crazy, or fear of dying. Big one for me. Now, what's crazy about panic attacks is they usually come on quickly and like seemingly out of the blue. They feel like they just come on. But what I know about panic attacks is usually there's a trigger. Of course, not all the time, but usually there's a trigger whether we realize it or not. So now I want to share a little bit about my panic attack story so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from. So I had my first full-blown panic attack when I was 20 years old while going to college in Philadelphia, PA. The year was 1994. It was the end of my second to last semester. So I had just gotten out of class. I'm walking down the street in Center City, Philadelphia, and all of a sudden I'm hit with this intense fear, right? I was like, what the heck? My heart started racing for a moment, and my vision kind of felt like it kind of narrowed, like all sides go black and it's just kind of narrowed. So the next thing I remember, which is really weird, is I started having these childhood memories. They just started popping up in my head. And the first memories, they weren't super clear. I remember seeing my kitchen at the home I grew up in, and then seeing other people, the stove. No real audio or anything. It just really, it was really weird. I guess what hit me the most is that I also felt sadness with these memories or a heaviness, right? Like a deep, heavy sadness. And this all happened within seconds. And I guess I look back now and I see what was really happening was that my childhood trauma memories were starting to surface and resurface. I had completely blocked them out, which is really crazy. But yeah, around this time, 20 years old, they started resurfacing. So we'll talk more about that later. But so I'm walking down the city street. I'm panicking. I'm feeling like I'm going crazy, and I want to run. Very typical. And in my mind, I'm seeing all these memories. So yeah, I'm a little freaked out, I'd say, for sure. But to be honest, I can't really remember what happened next. I know I got to my dorm okay. I know that much. So this first major panic attack happened midday on a very sunny day, and that's important. So after the incident, I remember keeping my curtains closed because I didn't want to see the sunshine in. I couldn't articulate why, but I just had this bad feeling when I saw the sun in my window. So I avoided it. Of course, I know now that people who have panic attacks often avoid the things or places where they had the attack or things that remind them of the attack. Of course, back then I didn't know. I had no understanding of what was happening to me and no real coping strategies to deal with it. You see, back in 1994, the internet didn't exist. So you couldn't just go Google your symptoms. Of course, Googling your symptoms is probably not the best thing to do if you struggle with anxiety and panic. Am I right? So now here's where everything kind of comes to a head, where really things get to the kind of crescendo here. So after the semester was over, I went home to Scranton, PA for the break. When I got there, I saw how my older brother had kind of taken over my room, right? This is my room now. Before I left for college, I had it all set. I set up really nice for a teen. I had a TV, VCR, right, stereo system. Yeah, I said VCR. Stereo system, comfy chair, nice bed. So everything was good. I was hoping to come back to that, but you know, I was already feeling stressed and sad from the panic attacks. Not having my room didn't help. It just kind of made me feel a little bit uh, just left out, I guess. So, I threw some blankets down in the middle room. That was kind of where I stayed as a kid. And I think maybe it was the next day. I was just lying down, I was thinking or something. All of a sudden, bam, another flashback from my childhood. And yep, you guessed it, it triggered another panic attack. And this one was the worst panic attack I had so far. Those same symptoms came upon me. I had the intense fear, the heart pounding, sweating, etc. And sometimes with the panic attacks, and this one especially, I started in my mind, I started seeing like a dark, shadowy figure. Now, of course, I don't know. Maybe it was my imagination. Could have been. Maybe it was an evil spirit. Maybe it was nothing. But back then, it felt like something was oppressing me, or I was being tormented by something. So at this point, I didn't really know that this was a mental thing, like caused by my own thoughts and whatnot. I just thought there was something serious wrong with me physically. So I was like, man, I can't take this anymore. So I jumped off the floor, grabbed the phone, and dialed 911. And sooner than I can say or think, I was being picked up by an ambulance. Now, to be honest with you, I was feeling a little embarrassed by that, having to be taken out by an ambulance. But at the same time, what could I do? I couldn't go on living like this, that's for sure. So I needed help. So then, I'm pretty wiped out mentally, and because of the panic attack, pretty wiped out physically too. So I don't remember a whole lot of going into the hospital. I remember going into the ambulance, and then kind of next thing I know, I remember I'm being taken to a particular area of the hospital. And the first thing that happened was I went into some office. I sat down with some lady, and she interviewed me, and she was asking me a bunch of questions. But the only thing I really remember is just telling her that I've been having these weird and terrifying episodes of fear and feeling like I was going crazy. And I also told her I was feeling a little hopeless, right? And that I was afraid of dying. That was a huge fear of mine. Just every time I would think of dying, I would have a panic attack too. So what I didn't realize at the time is that I was at the behavioral health area of my local hospital, and unbeknownst to me, I was gonna stay there for a couple of days, right? So next thing, two things that happened was that I was given medication, and I was also shown the room that I was gonna stay at for a few days. Not sure what order that was, but I just remember all that. And there's a lot more to the story too, because I had some really wild, very interesting experiences during my stay at behavioral health. But maybe I'll have to do another part of this and talk more about that because I know find it kind of interesting, really. But for now, though, I'd like to offer some help and some hope to those who may be currently struggling with anxiety and panic attacks. But before I do, I have to give you a disclaimer, so let me read it for you. This disclaimer says I'm going to share general information and coping strategies that may help some people with anxiety or panic attacks, but this content is not a substitute for professional mental health. Everyone's situation is different, so please talk with a licensed professional if you need personal support or treatment. Got to put that in there. And if you are in a mental health crisis in the U.S., you can call or text 988 for access to suicide crisis lifeline, rather. If you're outside the U.S., I want to encourage you to just contact your local emergency services or crisis hotlines in your country. So, all right, we got that. So now here are my top 5 tips that can help you manage and cope with panic attacks, things that I've learned over the years. Tip number 1, you want to learn everything you can about panic attacks. See, unlike 1994, there are a wide variety of educational materials on panic attacks that are available today. You got books, you got workbooks, you got fact sheets, you got digital media sources, videos, online courses, you got everything. So, learning about panic attacks, um, what it does is it takes away the mystery and can help reduce their power over you. You know, they say knowledge is power. It's true with panic attacks. So I want to give you a quick little tidbit of information, kind of get you started. Besides the definition, this might be one of the first things you learn about panic attacks. Physically speaking, when you have a panic attack, what it is, it's your brain going into fight or flight mode, but it's on overdrive. You see, your brain senses a threat, even though there usually isn't one. Right? That could be a thought or a place, whatever. And it releases adrenaline, and that adrenaline is preparing you to either fight or flight, right? Fight off an attack or run. You've heard this before. That's why you get the intense fear. It's meant to move you. But really, it's just the body's alarm system firing too strongly. It's on overdrive, right? It's like a Ferrari going too fast, too far. Uh, so all you really have to do is a quick search on Google or whatever search engine you like, and you'll find all the educational information on panic attacks you can ever want. And once you're armed with this knowledge, you've taken a huge step towards your recovery because you gotta demystify it, right? And some of the resources are free, some you pay for, but it's worth it. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is, I would say, discover and diffuse your panic attack trigger or triggers, right? See, panic attacks, they feel like they come on suddenly, and sometimes they do, but I've learned that there's usually a trigger. But the problem is the trigger can be a myriad of things, right? A panic attack trigger can be a person, can be a place, a thing, or a situation, right? And one of the best pieces of advice that I got about this from a psychiatrist I talked to, during my stay at the hospital in 1994, was well, first let me tell you this: in the rec area of the hospital, of the behavioral health area, there was this piano, and for some reason, the piano just kind of made me very sad and kind of triggered a little panic in me. Not sure why. So I thought, I'm staying away from this piano. But I told the psychiatrist about this, and what he taught me was that it's not the thing itself that's triggering the panic, but your thoughts about the thing. See that? So he gave me an example of how there's a woman who was afraid of getting into a swimming pool, right? Now, it wasn't the swimming pool that was causing her the fear, but rather her thoughts about the swimming pool. You see? That little piece of advice was so helpful for me because from that day on, I just began working on figuring out what my thoughts were about things, thinking about my thoughts. And so, because I wanted to start diffusing those triggers. And so, in my mind, how I see a panic attack is the triggers rather is like a armed bomb or explosive, like you see on TV, right? So when you have a certain thought about a person, a place, a thing, or situation, that's your trigger, right? It triggers a bomb, the bomb goes off, and boom, you have a panic attack. So let's say, you always have a panic attack when you go to the grocery store, right? Just thinking about it makes you want to stay home, very commonplace. So you know the trigger, but now your goal is to think about how you think about grocery stores and why they might trigger you. Some people might have experienced something traumatic at a grocery store and that, as a child, and that's why it triggers panic. Someone else might have had their first panic attack at a grocery store and that's why it triggers, right? Someone else might simply they just feel overwhelmed when they go shopping and that triggers a panic. And someone else, they might be embarrassed or afraid of running into someone. So at the grocery store, they know someone that they know, so that triggers panic. So there could be a wide variety of reasons why a grocery store would trigger your panic. So your goal is to really start writing down your thoughts about the grocery store. Because a thought journal could be helpful. You know, just writing those down in a thought journal. And one thing I'd say here is that a lot of people they already know their trigger, but they just don't know why it's a trigger. And that's really how you diffuse it, learning the why and then working on that, right? And you can go to a professional therapist, have them help you work through there. It takes a long time. Diffuse the triggers of your panic, it takes a while, right? It's not an overnight thing. It takes work. However, it's definitely worth the effort to break free from it. I'll tell you that. Now, before we move on to tip number 3, there is an article by Harvard Health Publishing, and that it says that there are times when panic attacks can occur in the absence of any cause or trigger. It's possible, and certain substances like caffeine, alcohol, or even intense physical exercise can stimulate the body and lead to a panic attack. So, with panic attacks, there's no 100% thing. It could be a trigger, not a trigger, caffeine. Could be a lot of things. So, we got to try to figure that out. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is to learn to ride the wave of emotions during a panic attack. And what do I mean by that? Well, once your panic attack is triggered, it's like a wave of emotion that smacks you right in the face, knocks you over. You ever been in the ocean and have a wave knock you over? That's what it feels like. The sensation. Because when you're in it, right? There's no getting out of it. You're gonna have that attack, and you have to go through it. So the only thing you can really do at this point is ride it out, if you will, and riding it out, and you're gonna wait for the sensation to subside. And how long does that take? Anywhere from 20, 30 minutes. So it takes a little bit. So what you want to do, right, are things that you can say to yourself while you're in the midst of a panic attack instead of panicking. Because you can just sit there and panic if you want, or you can do some of these tips. So let's talk about this. First thing is you can talk it out, right? Maybe you just want to talk to yourself through the panic, because kind of what happens is when we have the panic attack, we then have the thought, I'm dying, or something's wrong, or I'm having a heart attack, and that just reinforces and causes more panic. So if you can remind yourself, tell yourself that, yeah, you're not dying, right? But rather you're experiencing an adrenaline rush. It's just an adrenaline rush. I'm going to be okay, right? Tell yourself, I'm going to be okay. I'm safe. And I'm most likely not going to die, because a lot of people don't, right? And if you're a Christian, I want you to turn to the Lord and ask him to get you through this, so he can talk to you, or you can talk to him. And if possible, bring to mind some comforting scriptures that you find comforting. A couple examples, like Isaiah 41:10. Now that one, it says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God." Right? I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That's a good one. Or Psalm 23. You can use, I like verses 1 and 4, right? The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing, or I shall not want. And this one, even though I walk through the darkest valley, or in some translations, the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. The Lord is with us, right? Psalm 91, how about verses 1 and 2? Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge, my fortress, my God in whom I trust. So a couple of any verses that you find comfort in, right? You can bring them to mind. You can also continue to work on grounding yourself by saying, this will pass. I'm safe right now. and I'm in control of my breathing, as you are in control of your breathing. You may not be in control of some of the sensations that you're feeling, because that's that adrenaline running through your body, that fight or flight mode. But you can control your breathing. You can control what you do. So overall, the goal here is to ride out these intense sensations, and so you can begin to calm your nervous system. Man, I didn't have any of these things. So when I first started having them, I'd have the, oh my God, I'm dying thing, right? And just reinforce it. And I'd want to run, and I'd run around and like a crazy person. So yeah, these things help. All right. So there you go. Tip number 3. Tip number 4 is be mindful of lifestyle factors. Now these don't cure panic attacks by themselves, but they definitely matter. Like prioritizing sleep. Yeah, I know. Sleep can be hard, right? Aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. You would be surprised how important, how healing sleep is to the brain. It's so important. So sleep, regular exercise, right? Getting out there, walking, doing what you like. Eat healthy foods. Whew, that's one I struggle with. But good meats, vegetables, fruits, things that give you good vitamins, good for the brain, right? Limit alcohol use. Alcohol is kind of a depressant, it can make things worse. And then you want to find ways to manage your stress, right? Stress is a lot of what triggered my own panic attacks, which then triggered other things. So breathing exercises, mindfulness techniques. I like to pray, right? Journaling, doing things that you enjoy, like hobbies and that, creative things, helps relieve the stress. Because you know what it's like. You get too much stress. It's like that boiling pot, right? It gets too boiling, top pops. For some people, when the top pops, they get anxious, they get angry. Other people have panic attacks, like I did. So just some things there. The nervous system becomes more vulnerable when chronically overstressed. So a more vulnerable nervous system leads to more panic attacks. And we don't want that now, do we? So that was tip number 4. Here's tip number 5. If absolutely necessary, talk to your doctor or psychiatrist about medications that can help. Right? Usually a last resort. For me, Paxil was a lifesaver. That's the main medication they put me on when I had my stay in behavioral health in 1994. Because I was having 1 to 2 panic attacks every day, and it was pure terror. As I'm telling you, later on, as the panic attacks kept going, then I kept having the childhood flashbacks of some of the hard stuff to happen. So it brought a lot of terror for me, and I just could not deal with it. So Paxil helped to stabilize me, helped so then I could manage my panic attacks better and do the trauma work, do the grief work that I needed to do in order to heal. It took a long time, but that's what I needed. So now a little bit about Paxil. The truth is, Paxil is an older SSRI antidepressant medication. It's not for everyone. It's one of the hardest SSRIs to get off of. Huge addiction thing. Body, mainly a physical kind of thing. So there are newer SSRIs and maybe better suited for someone struggling with anxiety or panic attacks. That's, I don't know at this point. See, I'm a counselor, not a psychiatrist. So that's why if you feel the medication is absolutely necessary for your recovery, it's important to talk to your doctor or your psychiatrist so that you can be fully informed about the side effects and what to expect before you take the medication route. You want to know what you're getting into, my friends. So, all right, that'll do it for this video. It's a little bit long one. I hope it's been encouraging and helpful to you. Now, if you are struggling with panic attacks and you'd like to share a little bit about your experience or you have a tip that would help others, go ahead. Feel free to comment below. But until I see you again, take care of yourself and have a blessed day.